It's the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio, flavored with a dash of humor. Welcome to intelligent, irreverent talk about plants and the planet they grow on. Your questions, comments, and participation are always welcome on Facebook and Instagram at The Mike Nowak Show and at Mike Now on Twitter.
Good planets are hard to find. Temperate zones and tropic climes. And true currents and thriving seas. Wind blowing through breathing trees. Strong ozone and safe sunshine. Well, good planets are hard to find. Good planets are in the main.
Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com.
Jet streams, perfect air.
And here they are, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
Well, good planets are in the main, right?
Welcome. I don't know.
Good morning. Hello.
Howdy doody, everybody.
Hi ho, hi ho.
Yeah, and the sun is shining. It ain't warm, but the sun is shining.
And it's not snowing.
Yeah, that's true. Wait a second. Yeah, because Peggy sent me a photo yesterday. She chats with me yesterday, and she says, "So, did you get snow?" I said, "What? Nothing here." I mean, we finally, late in the day yesterday, I want to say around 8 p.m. when it was dark out, I looked out and I could see some flakes coming down, but nothing stuck. It wasn't anything interesting. Peggy sends me this photo from her neck of the woods, and this was yesterday morning, right?
Yeah, but kind of all day.
Was it like that all day? We didn't get it here, not in the city.
I still have snow. I almost brought a snowball in for the show.
You should have. You should have brought that in. I was surprised. I was stunned because hence it was raining here most of the day, but we didn't have that craziness. So and I assume it's all gone, right?
Oh no, it's all out there still.
Oh really?
So I said I almost brought a snowball in for the show.
Well, I heard that Rockford got about 3 inches of snow. So, yikes.
Not that much. I mean, it's a dusting, and today when it gets in the 40s, it'll be gone.
Yeah. So
yeah, we've got a lot of our viewers are talking about their snow right now. So.
Okay, folks. Yeah. Okay. Tell your snow stories there. And we've got Zan has like a paragraph there about snow. Okay. And I'm hoping we get more responses here. We changed the settings on Restream so that and you guys don't even know. You folks watching, you're watching on Facebook or on Twitter or whatever, and you're typing your comments in there. It comes through this aggregator that we see on this end. It's called Restream, and I'm hoping that it's a poem. Zan says, okay, good. And we see it all here. Theoretically, it's supposed to.
Yeah, it's still not going out to Facebook. No.
It should be. I mean, why are you looking at the Facebook stream and it's not showing up?
Yeah.
Well, darn it! Come on, Restream. You guys are losers.
But maybe it'll show up later. If you remember last week, after the show, I was looking through Facebook. I went, I never saw half of these comments.
I know, and
I never saw them.
Forgive us if you make a comment and we don't respond because we can't afford to. We don't have the time to look at all the different places we're streaming this. We just look at the aggregator on Restream.
And I've got the main Facebook window open.
And if it doesn't grab your particular comment, and we don't see it. And last week there were a bunch of them we didn't see till after the show, and Peggy says they didn't even show up on Facebook until after. So I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. I'm just here piloting the spaceship and just hoping that a bunch of people are watching, and we've got a great show today because we got a couple of guys who are going to teach you about native plants. And it's not just that they're going to teach you about native plants. These are a couple of guys who've been around the block a couple of times, maybe a few times. They know a few things, and they're not afraid to say a few things about the work they do. And I think folks are looking forward to this because I saw a pretty good response during the week on social media in advance of this show. So folks know who Kelsay Shaw and Tristan Shaw are from Possibility Place Nursery in Monee, Illinois. And they are with us this morning for the first hour. And get your questions in. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things. As a matter of fact, I got a little bit of a list that I put together during the week when we were planning this, and it has, it's like a 60. We should start a 60-second clock, and then talk nativars, the idea of owning plant seed. Copyrights.
60 seconds?
What?
60 seconds?
Yeah, 60
a
seconds.
60-second clock?
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe a 2-minute clock. Annabelle hydrangeas, the big switch from traditional yard to natives. Looking for Vanessa. We'll have to explain what that is. Plastic pots. Trees are a renewable resource is a lie. Rescuing butterflies from the greenhouse. Invasive species, Norway maples exploding, and literally exploding. This is a cool story. And of course, oak myths. And speaking of oaks, before we get to our guests, I want to let you know that next week we've got Doug Tallamy back. So this is very, all right, there's the NBC. And Doug Tallamy will return to the show next Sunday to talk about natives also, but also the bigger picture of protecting species worldwide, certainly
Saving
in our
our wild places. Yeah.
Homegrown National Park, all that stuff. And we had such a great response when he was here with us, I think at the end of January. I just said, hey, will you do it again? And he said, okay. I just love the way he as long as
he's like, sure.
As long he has to check with his wife to find out where he's speaking because he does like 72 talks a week. And if he's got an hour free, he can join us. And apparently he was free next week at 9 a.m. Central. So Doug Tallamy will be with us. On today's show, as I said, Kelsay and Tristan Shaw from Possibility Place Nursery. Peggy and I will be doing the green. What are we calling it this week?
Dispatch. The Green Dispatch.
The Green Dispatch. And then, of course,
the Green Gazpacho. Yes.
Right. The green. I like that. The Green Gazpacho. Let's. Isn't that
we need tomato season for that?
That you just said something political. So, but I won't go into it.
No, I meant from the soup, from tomatoes, from garden.
I know. Yeah, but it's. Never mind. It would take too long to explain. And then meteorologist Rick DiMaio will be here with a forecast that is not thrilling, but it's not horrible. So it's we're kind of stuck.
Great if you like March.
We're stuck.
March, it's great.
Yeah. So there you have it. That's all today. And I will say, if you like your Rick DiMaio, get it while it's hot because he's going to be taking a few weeks off over the course of the next few weeks and months. So
and we'll be taking Easter off too, but that's in a couple.
Yeah,
of weeks.
We're taking Easter off. I'm going to hunt for eggs and do something like that. So let's just get to our guests there. Lower left, Kelsay Shaw. Lower right, Tristan Shaw. I referred to them as the ZZ Top Boys the other day, and I don't know if anybody got that joke, but there they are. Hey guys, good morning. All right, now are their mics not on? Hold on. See, I set that up. I know. I know.
Kelsey's there.
They're there.
Well, mine was on earlier.
It was, and I now I have to go back and look at that because I set that up. I know what I didn't set up. Okay, never mind. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Live radio.
Yeah, that's the way it works. It is such a pleasure to have you guys on the show. Kelsay was with us back in 2019. And
It's been a while, yeah.
Yeah, it was before BP, before pandemic.
Yeah.
What you said at the time has resonated with me ever since. You said that tidy thoughts are for losers. And that has to do with gardens, not so much living rooms, I guess.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, if you're going to apply it to other things, I cannot help where your mind's going to go with it. Yeah.
But it is good. Yeah. But it was in terms of your gardening and what people do. And one of the things we talked about that day was the neatness brigade out there, the folks who've got to clean up. One of the things we're going to talk about during the Green Dispatch at 10 a.m. is an article that came out by Illinois Extension at the end of February. Ryan Pankow wrote a thing about spring garden cleanup, and his advice is leave it alone. People get nuts.
I remember seeing that someplace.
Yeah, people get nuts about cleaning stuff up, and what's happening is until the temperatures get over 50 overnight, the insects are still hanging out. They're hibernating, and they're just waking up. And that was his advice: is if you got stalks in there in your garden, leave them alone. And nip and tuck around the edges. He says if you want to clean your borders next to the sidewalk or something, yeah, you can clean that up. But the middle of the bed, you might just want to leave it alone until the insects have a chance to wake up.
Yeah, it even said, it was talking about if you're piling it in piles, don't scrunch it together so it overheats.
And especially right now, with all the rain that we have, it's a good idea to stay out of your yard just for compaction issues. Some people want to move mulch around or something like that, and just let it dry out a little bit too.
Yeah, well, and we didn't have this issue.
As soon as the good weather shows up.
Yeah.
As soon as the good weather shows up, people are like, well, I got to get out there because you never know what next weekend is going to be. And I don't want to have to spend time later on this. And really, it's spend time outside for yourself now when you can, and then clean it up later.
Well, but the point being, I think, is that folks, rightly so, I guess, in their gardens are thinking of themselves and what they want it to look like. And the point that is being made by Ryan is that there are critters out there that have gotten through the winter. They've gotten this far, and you can mess that up by getting in there too soon. And I think of some of the critters you guys deal with, you see, and we're going to talk a little bit about that you see at Possibility Place Nursery. So the idea is take it easy, and it's not all about you. There's other creatures involved in this.
Don't get out there with the leaf blower and.
Oh, good God! Yo,
right all.
Good God. Yeah, with the leaf blower. I got your leaf blower right here, pal. All right, I'll tell you what to do with that thing. So
come on, this is a family show.
Not when you start talking leaf blowers, okay? So let's. I'm sorry, I have no use for leaf blowers at all, ever. But and I'm sure there are some people who are going to say, well, we can't do our jobs without leaf blowers. A good old fashioned rake works pretty well. So let's start at the top here. And I don't know who wants to take this, but you guys should describe Possibility Place Nursery in Monee. You're going to celebrate your 40th anniversary next year, if I get the numbers right. I think so. It's pretty close to it.
1978 is when we
You're old now.
Oh,
unofficially
78. Oh, 70. I thought it was
78.
83. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No, it would be 45.
It was a long time ago.
Officially, it was a long time ago, but like unofficially, it was. I think we started planting, or Connor started planting behind one of our greenhouses in 1970. I think it was in 78, and we officially opened
Connor's
for
your father.
sale a couple of years later. Yeah, Connor's
Correct.
our father. Yeah.
Yeah.
He retired 2 years ago now.
Yeah, but
he's still kicking around out here, I can tell you.
Yeah. I got Peggy and I went out there several years ago, and he was riding her around. Well, riding both of us around in the ATM or ATV.
The Kubota.
The Kubota.
If he was riding around an ATM, then he, you know,
yeah. Well, right.
Wish we had an ATM.
You know,
yeah, it'd be nice.
I tell you, I'm. Yeah, if you're making,
That'd be amazing.
Are you making your own cash? If you're making your own cash out there,
we literally have the money tree. The nursery. My dad, he started as a traditional nursery though, so we were a traditional ball and burlap nursery. He wanted to be different, and so he wanted to grow oak trees. Was his main one of his main focuses. And he soon realized that growing oak trees in traditional fashion is difficult to impossible to be a functioning, profitable nursery. So through that, he kind of saw what the industry was doing and said, I have to do something different to compete, and I want to offer different plant material and native plants. Even back then and even today, they're starting to get a little more traction, but we're not popular. So through just trial and error, kind of got us to where we are today, and eventually switched totally over to natives. I think about 20 years ago, somewhere in there.
So I think it was 02 when I came back from working up on the west side of Chicago. When I came back to the company, one of the things that we agreed, between the three of us was that we would drop non-native species, and we still had some in the field, so we just phased them out, and we went all native to the United States, but specifically to the upper Midwest. That's where we wanted to spend our focus on, and we wanted to kind of like pull in as local a genotype as we could possibly do with as broad a gene base as possible. So what we do is when we travel to collect their seeds, especially for the woody plants, we travel 50 to 100 miles in any given direction. It kind of looks like a football, and we run down I-80 out past Ottawa, and then over towards South Bend, up toward Milwaukee, and not quite as far south as Champaign, but that's kind of where we like to focus a majority of our seed collection. And we do have some outliers. There's some magnolia species and stuff like that we got through second generation wild collection from friends that we trust. Things like our big leaf magnolia and others, we'll call them unique plants. And we really, try and not so much limit their production because some of them are popular, but we try and make sure people are aware that, hey, look, this is native, but not as you would use it for particular native species. Or as you would use it for as particular.
Wait, explain that for a second. How would you call it? It's native to what? North America is what you're saying?
It's native to North America. For example, we have an extirpated species, Franklinia ultimata, which no longer exists in the wild, and I believe was first collected by the Bartrams way back, and the plants that were collected in the wild went overseas and then came back to the United States. And I had a professor in college who had a small grove of them, and we have been planting his strain from seed ever since. And so our plants are from seed. They're genetically viable, but they are not truly native plants, especially not to Illinois. But they are actually no longer native to the United States in a way that is, we'll call it in nature. more significant where you're going to find a population just lying around along some creek or, on the side of a mountain or anywhere. So we have species that we do bring in from other areas, but we have found that they tend to be benign. They don't cause harm. So we are still inclined to offer some of them. Anything that we find that is too aggressive or problematic to unleash on our local environments, we do not offer. Even if it's native to the United States, sometimes they're just they can be angry plants. And you got to be careful on which ones you kind of let go into it without really testing it for real.
Well, give me a couple of examples of that.
A couple of examples
like
of that.
oak leaf hydrangea, or you mean aggressive plants?
Yeah,
aggressive plants.
Aggressive natives.
Good. Whew.
Great.
Well,
sorry. Well, that's all the time we have, folks.
Put me on the spot.
You keep these out of your garden plant.
Great. Gray dogwood is an aggressive plant.
Gray dogwood, yeah. Well, actually, rough leaf dogwood is far more aggressive than gray dogwood. And that one,
if you burn it, you've really made it more aggressive.
You make it angry, and it just comes up everywhere. And so it's like the less impact that you have on it. Like gray dogwood is a good example. Like prairie people are going to lose their nut over gray dogwood. They see it in a prairie, and they're like, "You must kill it," and it's terrible. It's a fantastic. It's a building block for a lot of native bird and butterfly species. It's a critically important plant to have around, and they would justify as like, oh well, it's fine to get rid of it because it exists somewhere else. But a lot of people that I've found is like trying to tell them is like, if you don't touch it. I mean, the farmers didn't used to touch it. It used to grow on the edge of their farm fields. That thing sat there for decades. Didn't move beyond its little colony, didn't do anything. But as soon as they started mowing it or burning it or spraying it, all of a sudden it's coming up in the farm fields. It's coming up in broader areas in the ditch because it responds to what's like browse pressure. So an animal that would come in and traditionally eat it back when we had animals, it would then all of a sudden it's like, okay, I've been eaten. What do I do? Well, I've got roots underground, and up they come. And then they have a secondary where they rely on birds because of the style of fruit that they've got. They get it in the gullet, the bird flies away and deposits it further down system, and then so it has a twofold attack. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that would be an aggressive plant that people you got to kind of watch out for. But
here's two more. There's two more coming in from our friend Christine Nye, who was at the Shed Aquarium for many years. She says poison ivy and pokeweed.
Two beautiful plants.
Yeah,
well, poison ivy is
beautiful.
A critical. Well, it's not just beautiful. I mean, it's a pain in the goodies, but it's also a critical foodstuff for migrating birds.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of, especially the ones that, in my experience, like the thrushes will come through and they'll pick poison ivy clean, and then again deposit it somewhere else. So I mean, it's and if you are, we'll call it bereft of choice on a migration that used to be a smorgasbord and could cover me, now you're more limited, and you're going with the species that are more aggressive because they're harder for us to get rid of, and they're still around for them to feed on.
Well, and as she mentions, pokeweed is another one that I learned my lesson about very recently in the last couple of years, that it's also an important food source for birds, and it's edible too if you prepare it correctly. If you don't, you might die.
If you don't, it can make you pretty sick.
Yeah.
Plus, it stains your hands this god awful purple.
And it used to be that the only advice for pokeweed was get it out of there. And now you might want to consider, depending on the kind of property you have. Obviously, if it comes up in your front lawn, well, what are you doing having a lawn in the first place? But if it comes up there, you're probably going to chop it down. But it just shows that the idea that all natives are good in all circumstances is just not true.
Well,
Um,
to a degree, there,
yeah.
it really is a matter of tolerance on our part, frankly,
Mhm.
of the species that belong under certain conditions, um, and being able to um, understand their place, and if they belong, great. Do I want them in my yard with my 2-year-old child running around, who doesn't like to wear pants? No, I'm not going to want poison ivy out there for that. But it's something that we need to be aware of, that in nature, poison ivy, it's a thing. And if you have a more balanced environment, poison ivy is going to take up residence where it belongs and should be outcompeted by, or at least kept in check by, other species that also inhabit that same space. And so the more balanced your local environment is, the better chance you have of actually combating some of these more aggressive tendencies and some of our native species that people have kind of like frowned upon for so many years.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've got a lot of information to cover here. I went through my 60-second list there, which is really like an
Mike,
yeah.
your mic is doing something weird. It's like got a little buzz to it, maybe.
It's got a buzz to it. You got me. I don't hear anything here because I don't hear my mic on this end. So let's like how how prevalent
Yeah,
is it?
try it now.
No, it's good.
Okay.
On my end.
Yeah, now you.
I don't
It
hear
was
it,
just
yeah.
something. It was something that Kelsay and Tristan didn't have, but you did. So now it's
Okay.
better.
All righty. Let's start. Let's start with the oaks and your dad. The idea that he was trying to grow oaks, which was an odd thing, it seems to me, at the time in the 70s. What gave him that idea that he wanted to raise oaks? Now we look at oaks, and thanks to people like Doug Tallamy, who's going to be here next week, and other folks, we realize how important they are. They're a keystone species. Did your dad?
Well, frankly, nobody else was selling it. Nobody else was
Yeah.
offering them.
Well,
That was it. And he found out that if he collected acorns, that when he, effectively, it wasn't really by chance, but he figured out that if I collect acorns, and we used to do this as children with him, we used to go to patios
Yeah.
and sweep them up, all kinds of stuff. But he found out that if he planted the acorns, they would all be the same, so that he could select out the ones that were just the same. And since it was a hole in the market, he was able to offer oaks to to people that were looking for them but could find them nowhere other than, say, pin oak, or possibly red oak. Some
Red,
grew a few whites,
maybe some,
but nobody was
some
offering
skunk
fur
white.
oak.
Yeah.
Nobody was
Bird,
offering
chinkapin.
fur oak. Nobody was offering chinkapin. It was too hard to grow because they put down that
Yeah.
taproot, and they became big, and it was problematic because then it was hard to harvest because of the branching structure and all the things that made an oak an oak.
So then, what did you change about that? If it's that hard to
Nothing.
grow, nothing.
Well,
no,
we
about
did.
the
We
tree.
changed the growing method.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we changed the growing
Yeah.
method.
So when my dad started, there really, and this is really before. I mean, plastics were just kind of coming into the market when he started, plastic pots, which is a whole other issue. But we grew our first plants in milk cartons. So he would get milk cartons, like a little cardboard container, and then we would just set them up in a wood tray. And then what would happen is the wood tray would have a hardware mesh bottom. So the soilless mix, put the plant in, the root would grow down to the hardware mesh, and then get air prone, and then develop a fibrous root system. And so then he would go take those and plant them out in the field, and then realize very shortly, doing ball and burlap, like my brother was just indicating, you can't really harvest an oak tree very easily because of its its aggressive root system, taproot, to get it up out of the ground. A lot of times you go to pull the tree out of the ground, and the root system would have a root still kind of attached to the ground, and you would ruin the tree, because the ball would literally the soil would go up the trunk, and the tree would stay where it was, and then effectively you can't sell that tree. And that's a big reason why the industry didn't sell oaks, and then the other reason they didn't sell oak trees is because nobody can trade. They have a very difficult time grafting oaks or trademarking it so that they could say it is, their oak tree. So that really drove the industry away from oak trees, and they started making up, outlandishly, falsehoods. Grows slow, kills babies, those types of things.
Yeah, I was just going to say that as you were saying, it's like now it's not bad enough that you just won't grow the trees. Now you have to actively work against them somehow because create fake news about oak trees.
What's weird about that too, though, is that you see the industry they are coming around by and large. There are more varieties on offer at traditional growers than ever before. But like we were saying, it's like a lot more straight species material because there's not so many named varieties of oak that are truly unique. There's a couple of columnar ones here and there that you would be like, oh, that's upright. But the life expectancy of a lot of them, especially the ones that are crossed with Quercus rovar or English oak, they're not as long-lived as our native ones. The ones that are actually going to be doing a lot of the lifting in our local environments, especially urbanly. So you're moving into the suburbs and downtown Chicago where oak canopy is diminishing at we'll call it as shocking a rate as anything that I've seen recently, because a lot of the old trees are starting to time out. We're having drought events that are knocking these trees down, and as soon as they're knocked down, the pests, because winter isn't as hard as it ought to be, is not killing off some of the pests and keeping them in check. And it's weakening these trees to the point where they're no longer able to maintain those monstrous crowns and that beautiful canopy that so many people, desire about them. And then when they die, they go, well, since I'm never going to see it in my lifetime, I might as well plant something that's fast growing. And that people think that, well, maple trees are fast growing, or, or some other exotic species like Bradford pear. Oh, they're so pretty. But an oak tree will put on in our nursery. Oh yeah,
yeah, the Bradford pear. This is well. It's also a sign we need to take a break here. But that would be this. Okay, that's the.
Sorry, my bad.
All right. Well, I understand that. I want to get into all of this. We're going to show you some photos of oak roots here. I do want to talk about the idea of that you just alluded to, which is something called nativars, which is a cultivar of a native plant, and whether that is sustainable.
Just a cultivar.
Okay.
Yeah.
We got into plastic. Okay. All right. I'm gonna have to just turn you guys loose. Let's take a break.
Yeah, we're gonna go get coffee. You guys can talk.
That's right. When we come back, Kelsay Shaw and Tristan Shaw from Possibility Place Nursery are going to cut loose. So you're going to enjoy it. Stick around. We'll be right back.
From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from tiny biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks at blazing-star.com.
Okay, I was watching. Yeah, Peggy was raising the roof back at there.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I love it.
It's a thing for kids.
Is it like a cool grasshopper?
Kids, it's for me.
And I got this thing. Somebody pitched me recently, and they said you got to check this out. And so I found the video, and I said, okay, I'll play that on the show. And now I can't find the email it came from, so I have no idea. It's some artist who put this together. And the only thing I will say, though, aside from insects and arachnids that who can recycle better than human beings, is they got one thing wrong. They said paper towels in there.
I heard that. Yeah.
I went, oh, come on, man. You guys got that wrong. You can't recycle paper towels. You can compost them. You can absolutely.
You can kind of compost. Takes a while on some of them.
Yeah.
Depends on the brand, I found.
So,
probably depends on how many layers of quick picker upper thickness they have.
Yeah.
Gotta watch out for that brawny guy.
All of them. No, it's tough because you can't recycle facial tissue. You can't recycle, as we said, paper towels. Those kinds of things are very, very difficult. So they need to fix that part of it. Other than that, it's kind of cool. So welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. We're talking to Tristan Shaw and Kelsay Shaw from Possibility Place Nursery in Monee. Let's just cut to the chase here. I want to show an example. We were talking oaks, and explain to us, guys, what we're looking at here. I guess, Tristan, this is you.
Yeah, I wasn't fully prepared for this picture. My brother sent it to you, but not me. But this does bring back memories. Basically, this was the tree on the left. The sickly-looking tree was a free giveaway tree. I'm a sucker for cheap is good and free is better. But this free tree is definitely not better. I got 12 of them, and they were in really bad shape. And I brought them to the farm, and they were grown in a terrible biosolids soilless mix. That was killing them. So I took them out of that and I put them in one of our Rootmaker containers and grew them. I thought they were the same tree. I wasn't sure what it was exactly because it looked so poor. I couldn't really identify what it was. And I put them in the same soilless mix, and our tree is from seed. It's probably July, and this is kind of the result. So. The reality is the industry when is producing a poor root system, which end result is a customer is going to have limited success, if any. And so what we find is when a homeowner plants a tree, they'll probably replace it once, and then if it dies again, they will not try it again because it is obviously costly and it takes a good bit of energy to do so. So kind of the point here is you really need to buy from I'm not going to say buy, you have to find a quality plant if you're going to have success.
Yeah.
Well, all right.
Tristan,
go ahead, Peggy.
Sorry. I was going to say, what is a Rootmaker container? You mentioned that.
Rootmaker Container is a trademark container that we use here at the farm. It's it's a company that makes containers that promotes root growth. And so basically it does it through either air pruning or a fabric or a diameter hole size on a bag that causes a root system to regenerate. So there's I don't want to get boring too much here, but the reality is tree roots are and soil is very interesting to me. And I would say that the main takeaway maybe should be is roots they have a 4-inch rule, a 4 to 6 inch rule really. So from the root tip, so where the root is growing at the tip, if it gets air pruned or pruned, it has the ability to, and when I say air pruned, basically it grows out into air because it's in a pot above ground. It grows to the side of the container. There's a hole in the container. It grows into that hole, gets air pruned, and then 4 to 6 inches back from where it gets pruned, it will regenerate roots. Okay, so then what happens again is those new developed roots, and those are small fibrous root system. Those are feeding roots. Sometimes they'll turn into structural roots, but those are feeder roots. And what that gives the plant the ability to do is harvest more nutrients for growth. And you do it again and again, and we do it thousands and thousands of times, and pretty soon you have a very nice fibrous root system. And so a root pruning container will do that. And if you get a straight-sided pot, with just holes at the bottom, it doesn't happen as much, or it is even less valuable because it takes the roots and turns them into a circular pattern of growth. And so when you get that as a in customer, you're going to have a bunch of roots on the side of the pot, and they're going to be growing in a circle. So it's not it's the same root that is not. It's not regenerating new roots. It's just growing in a circle continuously. And then what's going to happen is you need to stop that. So if you're buying a tree or any plant in a non-root pruning container, you're going to want to take that plant out and cut the roots on the sides because you want to eliminate that those circling roots. So
now you have to be,
which does it definitely hurts the plant. Yeah. Oh, you do. Yeah. No, it's tricky for sure.
You have to be careful.
You could kill your plant.
Right. Yeah.
So, but with that concentration of roots, you'll get this band, especially across the base, and you'll get heavier roots because the plant wants to get that structural system out as much as possible. And if it finds that it's contained on the sides, then the structural roots will try and find that out, and they'll just keep on going down. And once it gets to the bottom, there's nowhere else for it to try and find a way out.
Well, and are we talking? We're not just talking oaks here, are we?
Or all plants. This is all.
Yeah.
And once this is a plant rule.
So they have a shelf life
across most plants. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's quickly look at this series of.
And real quick, we've got Michael asking: do felt bags air prune roots?
They can.
Felt bags are nice. Yeah, they can, but they're like nice for the 80s.
It's old technology.
The whole. It's older technology, and some of the way to catch up to it. There's a lot of nylon running around in the way that we've done it, and it's not great. But Tristan, you can see the green pot that Tristan's left in this picture, and I've got one here. We're actually looking into biodegradable pots to replace our plastic ones, and we're trying to phase these things out. And right now we're trying to find, if there is a way that we can use these types of products rather than things like felt and nylon and some of the other, fabrics that go into these things to a lesser degree, so that we can start minimizing our long-term impact even on our own site. Because there's bags and things like that are left over in our fields periodically, and it is a form of pollution that we're trying to get away from, but we still want to maintain a healthy root structure that is producing a plant that is healthy for our customers, something that's going to actively want to grow for you, rather than, hold on, I need my cup of coffee 3 years from now, I'll be ready to grow for you, rather than, we want it to happen right now.
All right. Well, that takes us to these photographs here. This is from a gallon container, correct?
Right.
That one's a gallon pot. Yeah.
Yeah. So our greenhouses are on right now. We start all our plants in greenhouses, especially on the woodies. We collect almost all the seed, and so this would be grown starting now. And then when this picture was taken.
It's August 1st. This one was August 1st.
August 1st.
Yeah. August 1st was the picture.
That's how. That'll give you an idea of a true seedling from a few months. All
right,
growth.
let's be clear. Yeah, you started the seed in the spring. This is in August, and that's a pretty healthy plant there.
Yeah.
That's about a half-inch caliber.
Less than 6 months old.
Normally, yeah. So in our oaks. The oaks start germinating. I don't know. I think it was last week in the greenhouses, and this plant clearly August 1st. But we're getting on species like, I believe this one's swamp white oak or Quercus bicolor. We're getting that kind of growth in the burr, the chinkapin. We're getting about a half-inch. We'll call it almost half-inch caliper, not quite. And I would say that plant fully washed is going to be in upwards of 2 pounds. So there's a lot of biomass actually in that plant rather than like the one that you saw earlier from the giveaway, where if I completely washed that and weighed it, it'd probably be under a pound.
Well, let's show another one. Let's show another one here. This is another one that you guys brought in. And
those are your lovely hands.
And this is a root ball that you brought in, and then when you washed it away, this is how much root mass you got out of it.
Right. And so this kind of goes back to the idea of when you start your, you need to, when you start your plants from seed and you have every step of the way, you're producing a fibrous root system or the best root system you possibly can, and selecting out the best plants, you hopefully will, and again, this root system is not terrible. It's not good.
It's not.
It probably will live. But if you have, if you grow your plants from seed and you can select the best plants out, you'll select the best root system. So hopefully the end customer will have a thriving plant.
And can I bring something to? All right, go ahead, Kelsay, and then I got a question.
No, it's just a real quick point. This plant was produced in one of those old school felt bags. Just FYI for somebody that asked earlier.
Okay.
So that's that felt. That's what that felt. The sides of the felt bag look like. See how there's no root protrusion?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And another question I have.
There's root protrusion.
Another question I have is look right above the soil line on that root ball. For those of you, I apologize to those of you listening on the podcast, but the dark area of the soil goes up the trunk of the tree. I have seen this before, where you'll buy a balled and burlapped plant and you bring it home, and the flare of the root is actually half a foot below the soil line. How does that happen? And how do you protect people from, because if you plant that at grade there, you're planting the tree 6 inches deeper than you should be planting it. And that's going to cause problems, won't it?
Yeah. Massive problem.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the short answer to that question is unscrupulous growers.
Really?
Well, it's an old school practice. What they'll do is they'll pre-dig their holes, and then they backfill, loose soil on top of a root system. And since the root system is not stable in that hole, they have to plant it deeper than they would like to. And then then your the root crown or root flare is going to be buried somewhere between. We've seen them buried up to a foot into the ball.
And the main reason they bury it is because they don't want to stake the tree.
And it doesn't that way it doesn't tip over in the field before they dig it.
Right.
Wow, because I've seen this, and I've planted trees for people where I've had to dig away the soil along the trunk until I found the root flare, and then use that as the new grade. And if people are not aware of that, they're going to kill their tree just by putting it in the ground.
Well, it depends on the species. I would say it's mostly true. That is a mostly true statement, but it depends on the species. Species like swamp white oak will actually move their root flare. They can actually sprout roots from higher up. Silver maple can do that, but it's not good for the tree. It's not good for it.
It's not overly desirable because the roots and the cellular development of roots is different from the trunk. And so if a root goes around the trunk, like Kelsay's saying, some species definitely have the ability to move their root system because they're floodplain trees and they're used to, the soil coming in from floods and moving the soil up the trunk, and they will grow new roots out the trunk. But those cells are different, and what can happen is, and you see it all the time, is that root will turn a left or a right hand and grow around the trunk, and then it will girdle it and kill it because those cells cannot graft to each other. Only the top of the tree can graft to, like branches can graft to branches, and roots can graft to roots. And it's, and not just, themselves, bur oak can graft to other bur oak trees, they can grow into each other. Yeah. And the same thing is happening in the ground. So, but at that interface where the root flare is, it's a dangerous thing to mess with.
All right, and we're getting a number of questions that I want to get to. I'm going to call an audible here, and see if you guys can't stick with us after our 10 o'clock break, because we're not going to get through everything I wanted to get through. Can you guys? I know you've got work to do, but it's cold out there. You don't want to go out, right?
It's not. On a sunny
Not
day,
cold in the
we got
greenhouse.
flowers and butterflies in our greenhouses, so it's pretty lovely.
Yeah, it is. Compared to what we've had, this is a great day to get out. Can I have you hang on for a few more minutes after the break?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can definitely.
That'd be fun.
All right. Now let's go to again, and then we'll get to some of those questions that are coming in. They're very, very interesting. This is from a 5-gallon container?
That's from a 5-gallon. Yeah.
And this is, again, one
And
of
that was-
your root systems, and you've cleaned it. The other thing we need to know is that you didn't just pull it out of the pot.
No, we wash them so you can see the roots.
Yeah.
And
And
this
a
plant
lot-
was
some of the lot-
seed. This plant was grown from seed. I believe this is a burr. This might be a bur oak. If my brain is right. This was from seed 14 months later, 14 to 16 months. So from February to February. So this is midsummer of its second or third year, or no, at the end of its second year. There we go.
But if you plant that, you're likely to have great success. Here's, I think this is just a wider shot. Is that of the same plant or a similar plant? I don't know.
Not of the same plant, but a similar plant. Yeah.
Similar plant. So that's what you're dealing with here. You're trying to get a good, solid root system to get your plants going.
Well, the other thing about that, though, is the proportionality of roots is incredibly important to the crown of the plant. If you do not have a proportional amount of roots underground, it will not support the crown to its fullest extent and let it actively grow, after transplanting. So, Tristan, what's the percentage again? Do you remember? There's a percentage of roots that you need to have versus the crown. There is a percentage, and I'm sorry it fails me at the moment, but the higher the percentage of roots that you have, especially of the varied type of root system, so you'll have both structural storage and feeder roots all, actively engaging, you're going to support a larger crown on a smaller ball as long as the proportionality of those roots is higher. So if you have that broader range underground, the better the top will do. So if you saw that one that we cleaned, it only had the structural and maybe some, we'll call it maybe a couple of storage roots. There were very few feeder roots. So that plant is going to then have to replace the feeder roots before it's going to be able to actively grow above ground. And that diminishes its plant. It diminishes its ability to actively grow in that first season, possibly in the second or third as well. And it also opens it up to not being able to stabilize itself. I've seen a lot of plants that were older in their pot, and a wind will come along 6, 8, 14, 16 months later and just blow it right over because it's got too big of a crown and not enough root mass underground.
Which leads to
if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But it also leads to the controversy over pruning new trees when you put them in the ground.
Oh no.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
The only reason you're pruning trees when you're putting them in the ground is you have a damaged limb, or you've got like a leader that has decided to grab itself and you have to get rid of one of them. Otherwise, you leave, because the more surface area, the better.
The plants need leaves to produce food. You cut leaves and branches off your tree, you're eliminating the ability for that plant to produce energy. It's all about stress management. So when you're going to transplant something, so you're going to buy it from a nursery, say it's a good plant, you need to. It's in severe stress. No plant wants to be moved. So that's the first thing you have to understand, is that you have a critical patient that you're taking home to be taken care of. So if it's hot out, if it's whatever, even the environment is a big factor, obviously. So you get it home, the best thing to do with that plant is put it in the ground. So, and plant it at the right depth, get water on it, put mulch it. Do not volcano mulch it. Don't pile mulch up on the trunk, and keep grass away from it. Yeah, exactly. You see it. You see it all the time, unfortunately.
Still.
But let's talk. I just want to mention something about how plants work, and it's basically the energy of a plant. The roots get the energy last. So, and what you need for a newly transplanted plant is for root development. So you want to leave as many leaves on as possible to produce, to produce energy for the roots. And if it's a mature plant and it's flowering, you should remove those flowers, fruit, flower, leaves, stems, roots. That's how the energy flows through that's how the energy flows through the tree or through most plants. And so it's very easy to do a little test at home, and I used to do this, and just because we have thousands of plants, I just took a hole puncher and I just started punching holes in leaves, and then I would pull the plant out of the pot and take a look at the root system. And all of a sudden you start realizing, because I have another plant right next to it I didn't punch holes in the leaves, and its root system is still developing. So it's totally based on the ability for that plant to produce enough energy to finally get to the roots.
You can be brought in for plant abuse, Tristan, for doing things.
All in the name of science.
We do terrible
science.
I look at it this way: we grow plants, and we do terrible things to plants, and we think we do pretty well by plants, but we have to select. I mean, we are for profit. We have employees. We have to support everybody. But so, I mean, the things that we have to do to plants is like, oh, this one's just not making the grade. It's gone. And
Yikes.
That's terrible. It's a loss.
Yeah.
But
to give you an idea on our oaks, I would say 50% of our oaks are garbage.
Yeah, at least.
And
how much? Wait, whoa, stop again. What was that percentage?
50%. So coming out of our greenhouse.
Germinated in the greenhouse.
In the greenhouse. Before they even get to in a pot, there's going to be 50% garbage.
Wow.
So we have somebody sitting there.
50% of the acorns are not good.
Okay.
I mean, they're fine plants and they live, but not for our
greenhouse.
We want to make the best possible plant. And so we select the best possible plants. And then every time we transplant it, we select again. So we get rid of more. So we could be up to 65 or more % that are thrown out.
All right. Well, we should let people know that Possibility Place Nursery sells not just oaks, but there are a lot of other trees, shrubs, also perennials. And
well, there we go.
We're going to get to that when we come back after the break. Before we go to a couple of quick questions, Kathleen wanted to know if it was open for retail customers, and of course, yes.
Online, yes. Online. They go to possibilityplace.com, and there's an online store there for anybody who wants to shop retail, and that's mail order with the possibility of pickup, but that it has to be arranged.
Right, and if you're watching this, we put the link out there. I don't know how many people got it, but you can just go to possibilityplace.com.
A lot of our plants are kind of low right now, just because of we've been selling, already since February, so we haven't. We have a notify me button
they go
on
pretty
those
quick.
plants. And if you want a plant, definitely click that button, because that tells us to grow that plant. If we don't see demand, if we don't see more demand, we're not going to increase.
Well, and you also do supply plant sales with plants.
Quite a few, yeah.
Yeah.
And the list of it is on our website as well. Lake County, DuPage County. We do a lot of work with a lot of municipalities, and these are all wonderful organizations, and they're run as fundraisers for them. And we love working with them. So it's kind of nice. Also have that public outreach aspect.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And
some of them have gone online only because they just don't have the staff. So they will be selling plants through us for the entire year. And that helps
Open
them
Lands,
as well.
for instance, is a great one to support. You can go to Open Lands. And,
that's a really good one. They do a lot of good work.
Yeah. All right. Tracy writes, their plants survive every time. So you get a.
Thank you.
And Candace wants to know, and this is the last one, and then we'll take a quick break. For Parkway success, any preference for burr versus chinkapin oak?
Oh, chinkapin or burr. If I'm going Parkway, though, if it's a broad Parkway, 6 to 12 feet, you're going with, or excuse me, that's not broad. 6 to 12 feet is a chinkapin because it can handle a more constricted root zone. If it's that 8 to 14, that nice, more boulevardy kind of thing, the bur oak is spectacular because it builds a lot of mass and you get that nice high canopy.
But if you're looking for more critters, birds anyways, chinkapin oak definitely has the tastiest. Yeah, come on. Ducks, geese, blue jays.
No, you're right. You're right. You got me.
I have a small chinkapin oak I planted down the street from me, and I have 2 ducks that hang out underneath it for the acorns. They've already figured it out.
Yeah.
And the tree's only about 8 feet tall. So those acorns are extremely tasty.
Bur oak has more insects.
Yeah, bur oak definitely has more.
I always go to bugs.
Yeah, insects. Yeah, exactly.
Well, wait. So bur oak has more insects?
Yeah, there's more opportunity for, especially locally, because chinkapin locally isn't. It's not one of your mass plants.
Right.
It's
site specific, more site specific.
It's a keystone, and like the bark, the fissures in the bark, things overwinter in the bark, and there's more things that kind of live on the leaves. We see more gall activity, so you're getting both predator and prey kind of activity going on where there's certain longhorn beetles that feed on oak galls, and bur oak is loaded in them, and you'll get these really cool looking cryptic beetles that kind of come in and eat prey on some of the pests, and it's quite amazing.
The reality here is we're splitting a very fine hair. They're both excellent for wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And frankly, it's really a choice rather than the bur oak is going to be more majestic and the chinkapin is going to have that lighter, finer crown, and you can't lose either way.
So plant both.
Yeah, and we can get in spacing. Oh boy.
And we've gone in terms of insects through the decades. We've gone from the point where people used to say insects are icky, and then they went through a period where they said insects are pretty cool, and now they're at a point where they say, I don't want to die. Please don't kill our insects. Take me instead. All right, so.
Well, tell some. Yeah, you're gonna have to tell more people that, because there's so many. Like they've got fences now that
mosquito
actually
squads are out there and everything.
Your yard.
It's terrible.
It's just stop spraying.
Yeah. Okay.
You could get a little off in your armpits, and you're good for the day.
On that note, I think we're going to the break.
It's Kelsay Shaw and Tristan Shaw from Possibility Place Nursery. Stick around, a lot more to come.
Hey, good morning, Dr. Drew. How you doing today?
Good morning, Victor. I'm doing well, thanks.
Right here we have a canker on the stem of this chestnut oak, and it's kind of got this dark staining around it. I just want to ask you, when we encounter an oozing canker on the trunk of a tree, what should our first step be?
The first step's got to be to figure out what's causing it. It may be something relatively benign like a bacterial infection, or it could be something more serious like a Phytophthora disease. And Phytophthora can be bad because that word actually means plant destroyer in Greek.
Okay, so it sounds like we would love to rule that out. So how can you tell the difference?
Well, first try and find where that oozing's coming from. If it's coming from an obvious wound, a crack, a split, or a boring insect hole, then it's probably bacterial. You can also give it a bit of a sniff because the bacteria would actually be feeding and fermenting the sap in the tree, and so it's going to smell a little bit sour or alcoholic or fermented.
Interesting. So what if it smells normal and I can't find a wound or a hole?
At that point, it's more likely to be Phytophthora, but you're going to have to take a sample and submit it to a lab for testing because there's no way to 100% verify Phytophthora in the field.
Okay, so let's say that it's confirmed Phytophthora. What do we do now?
At that point, we want to combine some cultural treatments with some direct management options. There are stem and soil applied materials that we use to manage Phytophthora, and then also cultural things.
Cultural things such as what?
Well, Phytophthora thrives in saturated soil. So you want to look at irrigation, you want to look at improving drainage, adding organic matter, and mulching the surface.
So well-drained soil, organic matter like compost, and then maybe a mulch ring?
Sounds perfect.
But it all starts with a correct diagnosis, right?
Exactly.
All right, Dr. Drew, I want to thank you once again for your time. And as always, thanks for being a resource for our arborists here at Bartlett Tree Experts.
Thanks, Victor. It's a pleasure.
Welcome to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Green, gardening, and environment radio with just a soupçon of humor. Or is that a dash? Brought to you by Bartlett Tree Experts. Every tree needs a champion. Go to bartlett.com. Here they are again, Peggy Malecki and Mike Nowak.
All I need is good food to eat and make me healthy, wealthy, wide awake. Lettuce, tomatoes, rutabaga. What about those sweet potatoes? All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good food to eat. All I need is good tools to make me music, porches, lawn serene. Give me all that I can take.
And welcome back to the Mike Nowak Show with Peggy Malecki. Bonus time for Kelsay and Tristan Shaw. You guys, you're just not you're just not talking fast enough. All right, we can't get in all of this information, and we've got still got questions coming.
We've got a viewer who said, "Off of your armpits." There's a song in there somewhere.
Yeah. So I want to get to since we mentioned that you guys also sell perennials. Talking about nativars, and if you go to my, I love it when I get a response.
Yeah, ruining a perfectly good Sunday.
Yeah, that's right. Well, gotta go out to the greenhouse.
It's a Sunday variety, happiness or something.
Well, so why are you guys so down? There's an article that I put in the blog post, and if you go to MikeNovak.net, you will see it. If you scroll down in the bullet points, you see there nativars versus native plants, and it's actually a pretty good article by a friend of mine who was part of Midwest Ecological Landscape Alliance, Carol Becker. And she sort of lays it out in a very cogent way. But you guys obviously are iffy about the idea. First of all, let's explain what a nativar is, because that's not a scientific term, which Carol in this article says over and over again.
Correct. A nativar is strictly a cultivar. I mean, it's no different than any cultivar out there. It's just a derivative of a native plant, maybe possibly a local native plant. God knows where the original plant came from, because it was selected for a particular reason or bred for a particular reason. And it's not environmentally, the impact can, these are pet plants. All right, you want a nativar, keep it in a pot, put it on the patio, take it for walks. It's not it's not the kind of positive impact that you might think that you are having with a true native species. Genetic diversity is reduced. You get we'll call it off-brand seedlings. So the plant will actually, when it seeds itself, you won't. The plant that is generated from it doesn't look like the parent in a lot of cases, and sometimes the flowers are more sterile, so they produce less pollen, they produce less nectar. They're not as positive an impact as using true native species. Yeah, they just aren't.
Yes. The industry is selecting a plant for a specific reason And the reason is color. Like Kelsay said, a sterile flower.
Height.
They're height. They like dwarfs or variegated or purple leaves. But the reality of it is they're selecting it for just that one reason. And like Kelsay said, it is one plant. So you think that you have a different plant from your neighbor, or you have a different plant from somebody in Denver or Florida or wherever you may be in the world. It is the exact same plant. So that is a huge problem for diversity, for genetic diversity, and then also.
Wait, can I stop you? Can I stop you there? Let's make sure we understand that you're saying it is the same plant or is not the same plant.
No, it's the plant that you're buying. It's the exact same plant. So when you're buying like let's
pick on Annabelle Hydrangea. We love picking on Annabelle Hydrangea.
All right, Annabelle Hydrangea is going to take some heat right now. Here we go.
Yeah, it's gonna get hot.
It's not. Annabelle Hydrangea it's a pretty shrub, all right, but it's a derivative of a single plant from a single place. And and the reason why you can call it Annabelle Hydrangea is because it's the same as all the other hydrangeas in that particular row that say Annabelle on the tag.
Because it's a clone. It's a clone, right?
It's a clone.
Correct.
And effectively, what'll happen is that you'll see it because it's pretty. It'll end up on these things for like we'll go to what we were doing for butterflies. They say, oh, it's a fantastic butterfly plant, but because the flowers there's more sterility in them, they don't produce the kinds of things that especially our local butterflies are looking for from the native competitor, which is Hydrangea Arborescens. And you're not getting the same kind of positive results. So you don't have as many butterflies on it. We planted it next to our native species here to see how many insects would visit the flowers, just kind of in an anecdotal way. And I had, I think 4 Annabelle and 4 or 5 of our native one. So, we tried to keep a balance, and they were roughly the same size. But the Annabelle produces larger inflorescences, but fewer of them, where our native one produces just crazy amounts of inflorescences. And inflorescence? Yeah, but whatever. Anyway, inflorescence. Anyway, but you get a lot of flowers. And what we noticed was we were averaging about 15 or more species on the native and 1.5, and we were timing it on the hour. And we were averaging about 15 species per hour on the native species and about 1.5 on the non-native, Annabelle. And one of the species that was consistently on Annabelle was a predator that would fly over to the insects that were feeding on the native and prey on them, and then fly back and eat its lunch like a picnic where nobody else was going to bother it. And that's something that you see time and time again when you start to diminish these species. And they're breeding them for, like Tristan said, these specific reasons. So now, more drought tolerance.
In the
it's
case
showing up in areas it shouldn't be.
Oh, okay. So Annabelle is more drought tolerant, but the main
no, not just Annabelle, but like just the plants that they're selecting in general.
Okay.
They're putting, it's like this one's great for sand, but it doesn't belong in that environment. And once you put it there, now it's taken the spot of a possible positive species that you might have been able to have there that does actual work in the environment rather than just look nice.
Okay, but and the Annabelles, the whole deal with Annabelle, I think it boiled down to one thing, is that the species flopped and people couldn't deal with that. They didn't like it, or the mop heads weren't big enough. It's all about what does it look like, not what it's doing in nature itself. It is this idea that we can make it better. And what you're saying,
we can make it better. We're dabbling in that whole. We'll call it arrogance. We can make it better. And honestly, the fall color in the native is, it's like, well, it's ours. We own it.
And then the other thing that they're going to do, another thing that they're going to do, the industry does this very well, is they're going to market it and they're going to market it as a pollinator-friendly plant. It's like you go to a very nice websites and very well-known garden centers, and right there you'll see good for pollinators.
Great for butterflies.
Great for butterflies, and it is 100% not. That is a lie. You go ahead and search Annabelle hydrangea on your internet and look at images. I guarantee you the first page or first 1,000 photos, you will not see a single insect on that flower. Doesn't exist.
Well, and okay, and here's a problem as I see it, and you tell me if I'm wrong about this. If you go to a garden center, you won't be able to find a straight species. You're going to be getting all Annabelle.
Yeah,
Okay.
because it's usually, well, one, there's not a lot of garden centers, and we've started now. In all fairness, we have started talking to a couple recently that are trying to offer like true native species for consumption in the Chicagoland area. I think we're working with Christy Weber now to supply them some, straight species natives, so they can offer true pollinator-friendly plants in an area where finding those species are very difficult. But as a garden center, a lot of times you're not actively growing your own plants. You're buying them in from a supplier, and those suppliers, they have named varieties that they rely upon for royalties and how and how their funding structure works. And having a native species, they don't own it. You don't get extra. I mean, nativar is a really fancy term to get an extra 20% on the bottom line of what you're buying.
And the bottom line goes to the people who produce the seed.
Well, not
they're not seeds.
The plant,
oh no, I'm sorry. You're right. It's the clone.
There are bred nativars. There are bred ones, as far as I understand.
Yes.
There are bred ones, but it's still, they're crossing X with Y and they're getting Z, and that's the plant that they're actively trying to get. And good for them.
Well, and the seed popped into my head because I was looking at my notes here, and this is something that you and I talked about. The three of us talked about the other day was the idea of owning seeds and having a trademark for seeds.
Well, they can't own the seed. They can't own the seed. What they do is they own the rights to that particular genetic makeup of plant. So it's like trademarking jeans or a light bulb or a sofa. It's that brand for that particular plant is owned by Bill, whoever Bill is, and Bill produced it. He put a lot of work into it, and it's not that it's wrong for Bill to do such a thing. It's just that when you put that out there, you shouldn't misrepresent what it is. And nativars are strictly cultivars, rebranded, and having that kind of misleads the public to believe that they are as good and purposeful in our landscape as true native species. And frankly, they're not. They're just not. If I'm planting liatris, if I plant native straight species stuff, now people would argue, well, if I plant this native here, it doesn't like to live here, but this nativar does like to live here. So I'm going to plant it and I'm going to have that flower. Well, that's great. But if it doesn't like to live there, if the native doesn't live there, there might be a reason for that. And you should be looking for corollary species rather than that got to have that one purple or orange or red flower, because that's what makes it right in the garden. And that's not how, actual native gardening works. You're looking at an overall spectrum of materials that are going to give you that more complete approach and complete environment for our local friends that live in the woods to partake in.
Let me ask you a question. Would you consider Monarda didyma a nativar?
Didyma. I don't know if I care to know that one. I know we deal with Fistullosa.
I know. That's why I'm asking.
Because didyma, that's that like magenta-y flower, right?
Well,
yeah.
Fire engine red, you get a lot of those.
There you go. Yeah, but I think there's a magenta one as well. That one's been around for a while. But is that the one from? I'd have to re-educate myself on that. I
Okay.
believe that's out
And
of
somebody just
zone.
posted
And fish
Scarlet Bee Balm.
Yeah.
Scarlet bee balm. Okay. And it is it's a selected species that is hardy outside its natural zone, and it's probably, it could be a seed produced, it could be clonally produced. I don't care enough to know personally, because sometimes I just get frustrated and I'll just block that kind of stuff out of my head. But if I'm going to be planting locally, I'm going to be planting the local species. And I have to understand that any Monarda, and this includes Didyma, can be a very aggressive plant in an urban yard. And once it starts to seed around or it starts to spread vegetatively, you know, people who spent a lot of money on Didyma are less likely to rip that one out, and then that one kind of spreads around. Whereas they look at fistulosa, and I only spent $5 on that. I'll just get rid of that son of a gun, and the next thing I know, I've got the non-native. But does that one tend to be benign as far as a pollinator involvement? There can be some benefit to incredibly similar species. I just don't recommend it, because you do have local options to go do that same exact thing and support, well, more locally, more proper. No, properly is not the way I want to say that, but that's similar in that thought.
Okay. Well,
If that makes sense again.
And the Didyma, I have never found it to be aggressive, invasive, whatever you want to call it. I know,
Tends to
and
be
I read
small,
it.
right?
I read about that all the time, and I've never seen it in my own yard. In fact, sometimes I have a hard time keeping the darn thing alive. And I grow it because my grandmother grew it and my mom grew it. And what I remember in the back of my head is that it was a natural occurring hybrid that someone discovered, and I want to say like in Massachusetts, that
Christine says native back east.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
well, if I remember right, and help me out here, but I could have sworn that this one, yeah, it came from back east. But isn't it like the Minnesota native? It doesn't it like circle north? It's been a long time since I've thought about it, so
yeah.
my
All right. Well,
apologies.
but
But
I didn't know. I didn't mean to
yeah.
sucker punch you with that one. I just thought you might.
No, and it's a fair point, because I should probably be more aware of some of these species as comparisons, and I get that the popularity of certain colors, and I want to do good. But if it doesn't flower at the right time to support the species, or it doesn't bring in the pollinators that rely on it, because we have eliminated the local source of what they would normally go to and replaced it with a subpar variant, then it's something to kind of keep in mind, that if there's a better option, use it.
We just got a great comment from our friend Steve Sass in Indiana. He says native R's are a big problem in urban forestry. Some municipalities actually require improved varieties to be planted over
improved
straight.
varieties.
Yeah, the nursery trade is big time influencing the selection of city trees. And I've got
had that kind of influence.
Well, maybe you will at some point. I know you're working hard at it. And we're running out of time here. Let's talk about, because somebody else said Arizona had incentives for homeowners to remove their yard and apply natives instead. It was a short program, but had success. Let's take us to a photo that you sent me that sort of illustrates some of what you're trying to do here. And we start with, okay.
Yeah. Well, it's a standard. That was a standard McMansion. I got a call from.
It looks like a funeral home. I'm sorry. It looks like a funeral home.
Well, what's funny is the guy actually said, he goes, I guess when we bought the place, I thought I was buying a bank, and it kind of made me laugh. But when he called and I pulled up, I hadn't even pulled into the driveway yet. I had to stop and take a picture because I couldn't believe. I'm like, this guy wants to plant natives. I'm like, okay, he's clearly out of his mind. And when after talking to him for a little while and seeing his dedication, and I don't know the state of this particular landscape anymore. This is a number of years ago now, But he really went all in, and we did a lot of good work for him, and we changed that landscape in quite a short period of time. But it was just like pulling up to any McMansion, and this is the result. We in that front yard we planted, I think, 7 oak trees and transitional landscape of shortgrass prairie. And since we were in Kankakee County, they had like a sandy loam, and so we used, regionally and locally collected species, and we tried to instead of name varieties of little blue stem or whatever, we used a seed that we collected seed literally maybe like 4 miles from this guy's house, and we planted it in the soil there, and they went absolutely berserk. There's Liatris pygmostacea instead of your Aspera, this the prairie one versus the ones that are, more suited for not the prairie.
Right.
And the shrub in the background with the yellow flowers, that's Hypericum Prolificum, which we also collected. I believe the parent material for that was from the western part of the county. So, I mean, this is all species that we collected fairly close to where this guy lived, and we brought it to his house.
That's
and
great.
The plants went absolutely bonkers. But he's an unusual case study because they went all in. They took every non-native out that they could manage to get out by themselves and really planted it in. And my hat has always been off to them for the effort that they put into that. It was amazing. There's all kinds of stuff that went into that landscape that are mildly hilarious and we don't have time for.
Well, I want to show that one more time because folks are commenting on the change here. And I'm sorry for you folks listening on the podcast, you won't get to see it. So it's another reason to go to the YouTube channel and take a look. So this is before and this is after. And it is remarkable.
That's exactly 1 year. Almost exactly 1 year.
So in the coming years, it's going to look even better, I would assume.
I would hope so. But like I said, I've lost track of these guys. If you maintain this, the whole idea behind this landscape was transitional. So what would happen is that we planned for the obsolescence of species. So once the oaks started to knit their canopy together, there were backup species tucked in here that would slowly take over because they like slightly more shade. And this yard would transition from a prairie to a savanna to possibly an open canopy woodland. And that was the whole idea behind it. And we wanted to put the trees in the middle so they would branch out and they would block off the house, give them a bit of privacy because they were on that corner.
Yeah.
So when you pulled in the whole O.C. Simons kind of idea where you have that interrupted view of the landscape and you kind of like you introduced yourself to the home as you entered the property. And they were well on their way. And they had another full acre on the side of the house that we did in a similar fashion. So
is this the kind of thing that you do for other people? You will.
I do consults. I'm working on I do very few full landscapes. I only do 1 or 2 a year, simply because of the time involved. And Tristan and we have other duties, so we can only take on so many. External projects where we are actively involved in the implementation of a landscape. However, we do offer consulting here free at the nursery. I have a table outside. We were being mindful, and now that we're updating the office, we're going to have a nice conference room that I could, sit down with people and actively go over their landscapes. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
But they have to have an appointment, and it's Fridays and Saturdays only because that's all the time I got.
Okay. And before we go, we just got a couple of minutes. I want to talk about saving butterflies.
And do we have to say who Vanessa is?
Yes, we have to say.
Absolutely. Actually, can you pull Vanessa up? Would you? I sent you a picture of her, right?
That's right. You sent a picture of her in a certain stage, which is this.
Yeah, there's Vanessa.
All right.
And
who is Vanessa?
The American painted. She's the American painted lady. And that their primary host species is a plant called Antenaria, the genus Antenaria. There's several native to our area. We grow Plantagenea. We do not grow Neglecto. We only grow that periodically.
Right.
But
the common name is pussy toes.
Pussy toes. There
pussy
you go.
Toes. All right.
Because the flower, they look like little curled pussy, like a little kitty cat paws. So it's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And the parent plant.
This picture is actually taken in our greenhouse.
And that's part of the point here too. We talk about you have to rescue caterpillars from the greenhouse. What's that all about, Tristan?
Like I mentioned before about the Annabelle hydrangea not having insects on it, and it's a bigger problem in the whole industry. And that happens to be a sterile flower, but it also doesn't have pollinators on them because the industry is willing to spray copious amounts of whatever it may be, insecticides, miticides, fungicides, which makes it very difficult, if not impossible, for insects to live inside a greenhouse or even on the property of a lot of horticultural properties or industries, nurseries and such. And that's mostly due to their cultural practices. They basically stress their plants out where they have a lot of pressures from insects, Japanese beetle being one of them, and they have to spray and kill them, which kills everything. And so we take a different approach. We try to grow extremely healthy plants. In fact, when we see an ill plant, we terminate it. So terminating a plant pretty much alleviates the problem of pressures from spraying. So what happens in the greenhouse is we actually, babies are the tastiest. So the baby plants, new plants, seedlings are quite tasty, and insects look to feed on them. So especially butterflies and caterpillars will move into their host species where they'll lay their eggs, they'll hatch, and we will let them eat for a period of time.
Absolutely.
We allow this to happen. Our customers want this. We want it, even if our customers don't, I should say. And we will. We have stands of these plants on our property, and sometimes we will move insects off our greenhouse plants because they will eat them to another host species that they'll live on.
Right, and one of the things you told me the other day is that you can't leave them in the greenhouse because they'll fry in there too. Right?
Yeah, so we do have
the butterflies.
The butterflies, right?
The butterflies do.
Yeah, I checked the butterflies.
Don't seem to care.
They don't care. Caterpillars can take the heat.
Okay, caterpillars can always take the heat. That's a good way. Yeah, but butterflies are free as long as they're not in a greenhouse. All right, so Kelsay and Tristan, we've gone way over, but listen, thank you guys so much. This has been really remarkable, and appreciate all the comments you have. We got to invite you back some point and just again go. We didn't even get to everything, but we got to a lot of it. So appreciate the time you spent with us, and I know you want to get out there because it's a sunny day.
Well, have a good one, guys, and thanks for having us on. Really appreciate it.
And folks can go to possibilityplace.com if they want more information, and I bet they could pick up a phone and maybe even get a hold of one of you two guys, even by accident.
Or me by purpose.
All right. Gentlemen, have a great Sunday, all right?
Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much.
All right.
Thanks, Peggy.
Meteorologist Rick DiMaio is next. Please stick around.
So this is a very simple par meter, and I'm going to measure the par value of this fluorescent light, which was purchased at a Home Depot specifically for growing and advertised as a seed starting light. Minimally for par value for just seed starting, so just to the seedling stage, you want a minimum of 80, really. 75 to 100 will do the trick. I would say 100 to 150 is far better. But right now, at about a foot above the plants, we're getting 49. So now we're going to, let me plug in our Happy Leaf light. This is our 17-inch Procyon 2.0, and it's a really great all-around light. They also come in 33-inch lights, which I have set up here, which is where I'm going to actually put my seed flat. Let's get it about a foot over. I'm getting a value of 335.
From spring seed and soil treatments to summer foliar feeding to fall stubble digesters, Blazing Star provides microbial tools from Biologicals for natural and organic farmers. They have solutions for home gardeners too. And Blazing Star also offers agroecological education and consulting, especially for permaculture work in zones 4 and 5. Learn more about these great folks and great techniques at blazing-star.com.
The Arctic is warming almost 3 times faster than the rest of the planet, changing the Arctic ecosystems forever, causing destruction around the planet. Once Arctic ice melts, we can't get it back. We can't negotiate the melting point of ice. World leaders must take immediate action to keep 1.5 alive.
I came across that the other day, and I was just amazed that animation is all used, that's melting ice, and they carved out the little polar bear there and did some kind of pixelation with it, and it's pretty remarkable stuff. And there's Jax behind meteorologist Rick DiMaio. How you doing this morning? Yeah.
He's on his perch. Yeah. So wherever I go, he goes. And then some. So he's looking for, I don't know what he's looking for, but he's always looking for something. That's a dog.
He's watching for squirrels outside the window.
What's that, Peg?
He's watching for squirrels outside the window.
Oh my God. If you say squirrel really loud, he'll jump up and down. Squirrel, rabbit, tree. No, don't do that. Yeah, he's actually right here. Yeah, there he is.
Hey, Jax, he goes, squirrel.
He goes everywhere. We just took like a good 45-minute walk this morning. And yeah, I had to wipe his paws again from not rain, but melting snow. That was pretty amazing yesterday, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking out. There's still snow out there.
And I was telling Peg earlier that we didn't get any here. I got nothing in the city. So you guys had all.
You weren't looking with your snow glasses.
Well, I saw a few flakes come down in the evening, but that was it. It was a non-event. Just some rain.
Well, it was not an event for you, but for everybody else, man, it came down really hard. It was. I got an inch here in Evanston. Peggy probably got about 1.5 inches. There were many locations that got about 2 inches, and the further away you got the further away you were from the lake, because there was a little bit of a lake warming with this. 3 to 4 inches up around Rockford, up around Galena. And what was really amazing, I was talking to Gino Izzi from the Weather Service yesterday, and I said, Gino, we're going to miss having the third, there's Rockford. We're going to miss having our third winter out of 5 where we had more snow in April than we had December. Isn't that remarkable?
Wow. And here's in Peggy's neck of the woods, this is what she had there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was coming down pretty good. I mean, it was one of these classic, what we call vorticity maximums, where the air is spinning and being lifted so fast that the amount of cold air that was coming out of the downdrafts of the precipitation was actually cooling the temperature enough where the snow makes it all the way down to the surface. And what was interesting was Gino Izzi and a couple of the meteorologists were watching the time lapse of the webcam up on top of the Sears Tower, and it was snowing the entire time up there, but you get 1,550 feet down to the surface and the flakes were melting. And Gino comically said that we were an elevator ride away from having a snowstorm in Chicago, and he was right. Because seriously, another
where your apartment was, yeah.
Right, but another 1 to 2 degrees, and even though the ground temperature was above freezing, we don't measure snow on pavement. We measure snow on a wooden platform. So they could have easily measured 2 inches of snow at O'Hare, which would have been more than what we had in the month of December, which is, again, remarkable. And I just got pictures from my brother in the Poconos in Pennsylvania, and they got about 2 or 3 inches of snow there as well. So it's been a cool pattern. And unfortunately, outside of a little bit of warmth with the sun today, that's about it. Yeah, I know. He's right here. I mean, he's right.
Hey, Jax.
Well, and the flakes were these like 2-inch snow globe things coming down.
Yeah, it was really amazing. You know, snow forms from a process called the Bergeron-Findyson process, as opposed to coalescence, and collision, which is raindrops. So that process that produces the snowflakes allows a whole bunch of these flakes to aggregate. In other words, they kind of conglomerate onto each other. And there were at one point, I think I saw flakes almost 2.5 inches wide. It was like 3 or 4 different ones. And what was amazing about it is when we got right underneath or right within the center of the surface low where there was absolutely zero wind, that's when the flakes got bigger. And the reason why is the wind wasn't coming down horizontally and breaking the flakes up. So whatever was starting between about, these flakes were forming between about probably 8 and about 12,000 feet. Whatever, wherever they were forming, they were kind of falling into each other. And because there was no horizontal wind, you literally had like a tandem of flakes coming all the way down to the ground. So it was really a remarkable feat of nature. One that, to me, to this day, it boggles my mind how incredibly diverse Mother Nature could be from one day to the next this time of the year. Now we have lake fog coming in.
Oh,
I'm sure you could probably see it more up by you, Peg.
Yeah,
I'm not yet, but it was like the other night when the fog was just rolling in.
And
that was one of the more impressive lake fogs. As I was teaching at Loyola, and literally from one side of the campus to the other, the visibility went from about 10 feet to about, say, 500 feet. It was just fog literally forming right off the water. And even though I'm teaching climate change class, I spend the first 15 minutes talking weather, and I go, guys, I know you probably want me to get right into climate change, but you need to know about this, because I know that there's some kids that are like, I just want to learn about climate change. There's other kids that go, it's really cool. He kind of relates weather to what stuff that were going on. But either way, I go, you're going to get a weather brief, because this is really interesting stuff. And it was. I mean, we've had some very interesting weather over the last 6 weeks, and it's not going to disappoint us this week as well. This is going to be the nicest day of the week. 2 days, the nicest day of the week.
Oh, boy. That's just
welcome to March.
That's not right. Yeah. Well, yeah, we are. Yeah. We're regressing. We're going back into March.
The first Saturday of the month of March, we were 70 degrees. It was 70. Mm-hmm. And here's the first Saturday of the month of April, and we were literally 35 degrees colder. And when the Cubs open up on Thursday at Wrigley Field, it's barely going to be in the low 40s. There's going to be like a 20-mile-an-hour wind. It's actually going to be a west wind, but it's not going to matter because it's still going to be cold.
Mm-hmm.
Come on, you might as well have a wind off the lake then.
Right, but that'll be a colder wind. Yeah, but I mean, the lake water temperature is about, Lake Michigan's about 2 degrees below normal right now, temperature-wise.
All right.
And it ain't going to warm up anytime soon. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, well, I want to show this because I sent it to you the other day, and you had your doubts about whether this was real, but
yeah, I still don't. I've seen that around a couple of times. I didn't even bother looking it up. That seems like way too much lightning. Way too much lightning.
Really? Well, it's a guy. I got it. Apparently, a guy named Taylor Von Felt in Wichita, Kansas. Took this, and a friend of mine sent it to me, and he fired it off to Jim Cantore at the Weather Channel. I
didn't even see what the responses were after it, because right away it looked like that seemed like way too much lightning. One strike I can see, but that many? First of all, I've never seen that many. But again, it was one of those things where I was too busy during the course of the day to start investigating whether or not that was true or untrue.
But just to ask, lightning can come up from the ground. You can see it go both ways, right?
Oh yeah, but not to that magnitude. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that much lightning come out of the ground and go that far up to that much degree.
Places.
Yeah. Well,
it just seems too good. Yeah. It was like what Clint Eastwood said in Dirty Harry. He goes, he looks too damn good. The guy that got beat up the other day. You remember the scene?
I do not remember that scene, but there you go. And you sent this, which is what are we looking at here, Rick?
Well, I send this now every week, and what you could do after a while, if you have enough of these saved up, you can do a time lapse. And Tim Schmidt up at University of Wisconsin Space Science and Engineering Center puts together. I know there's Jack's kind of like getting into the picture there.
He's not in it at the moment.
Not in it at the moment. I get it. But they'll do like a time lapse showing like where the sun is at a certain time of the day. And when I took a satellite meteorology class at Wisconsin when I was a senior, most of what we had to do was interpret the image. So there would be this image here, and I give it to my students now, and I said, okay, find the sun. It's that little spot that's the brightest point just to the west of Ecuador. As best as you can tell, what time of the year is it? What's happening on the western side of the Amazon? Can you find La Nina? Can you find, I mean, there's all these different things, but you can definitely see where the sun is. It's literally just south of Panama. And this basically tells us that we're 2 weeks beyond the equinox because the sun typically shines right on the equator. Now, the weird thing about it is the Earth is upright, but typically the Earth is tilted. So that's the one thing that you always have to kind of shift it from a little bit at that step.
It's pretty cool, though. Yeah, and it's a great.
And what's really neat about this, real quickly, is this is a true color view. So when you do a true color, you can actually see the vegetation. And now with the greenery beginning to come out across the southeast, when you do these true color images on a smaller scale, you can actually see the beginning of the growing season as well. And probably in another month, you'll begin to see the carbon dioxide levels come down as well. Because I talk about that every week in climate change. We're actually added on 2.13 degrees of parts per million of CO2 to the atmosphere since last year. And that's not a good thing, obviously.
No, it's not. And here's looking at our precipitation that has come in over the past week. I put in a new rain gauge because I think the other one got cracked. And I think it was Wednesday to Thursday I got an inch of rain.
Yeah, I've got 1.8.
Mike, you got more than that. Easily.
Yeah.
You got more than
I just checked this morning and I got 1.8.
When I put but what I was going to say is it was from one afternoon to the next. It had already been raining for a while, but I realized that the rain gauge wasn't working properly, so I put in a new one. And in in about a 24-hour period, I got an inch of rain.
Yeah, because I would say in your area you were up almost 2 inches. Because I know there's another map that shows where the rain came down the heaviest. But again, if you think about it, there it is. If you think about it, it's the exact same area that continues to get the heaviest rain. It's unbelievable. We've been in this pattern now where that area from St. Louis northward, and I think I have a 30-day precip map, has basically been in the heaviest rainfall now for almost the last 2 to 3 months. Now, granted, that could easily change a little bit, but the pattern has been very, very persistent between about the end of December and about since to now, really.
Yeah, and this is your 30-day precipitation.
Yeah, and again, I wish the Midwest Regional Climate Center would change because the red looks like it's dry.
Right.
But I don't know why they do that. I gotta talk to them down there because it just seems weird that it's like this. And I'm sure they'd be able to change it. It just doesn't look representative of what rain is.
I agree.
Right?
I absolutely agree.
Yeah, it doesn't match the drought map.
Yeah, it doesn't jive. But nonetheless, you can see there's been over 6 inches of rain, in areas of central Illinois. So the farmers downstate are doing really, really well. I mean, their fields are ready to be planted. It may not get there yet because it's still pretty chilly over the next week to 10 days. I also included some soil temperature maps as well.
And this is another map. I think this is the Purdue map, and they use blue as a lot to indicate.
You know what, they should remain a little bit consistent here. This is percent of mean. So what this shows you here is those areas where they got the heavier rainfall, they're running about 250% of normal. And then the lower numbers represent the 5 to 10%, and that's colored with yellow and red. So yeah, I know they need to all get on the same page.
Exactly. Now here's the snowfall, October 1st through March 31st.
Yeah, now this is really amazing because I did some digging yesterday, and I got this off of one of the Twitter sites from the NCEI, which used to be the NCDC, which was the National Center for National Climatic Data Center. Now it's the National Center for Environmental Information. So someone gets a new job of a new post, and they change the acronym. But what's really amazing is you can see where the snow wasn't over Nebraska and western Iowa, where they got less than 8 inches, which is amazingly low. Again, think about, we didn't get many storms come in from that direction. We got a few clippers, but man, did it get cold and snowy across parts of northern Minnesota and up around Minnesota, I should say the Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and Wisconsin. This is actually about 6 to 10 inches of snow. I was looking at one of the webcams from Northern Michigan University early this week. And there were, again, I think we talked about this last week, there were still people snowmobiling, and they had 18 inches of snow on the ground. And this was going into early March. Now, that's great because that snow will eventually percolate down into the soil, but sometimes if you get real warm and real wet, you can have massive flooding with that type of a scenario. So again, decent snows appear to be the case when you look at California, but all that snow occurred in the month of December. And then you can see exactly where the snowfall occurred downwind of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. However, when you go to the next map, which is the departure from normal, this to me tells a story, because look at how low it was, again, from the Plain States into the Midwest. You're down about 6 to 12 inches, which means that you're down probably about 1 to 2 inches of water during that particular time. Again, you can see that area of northern Missouri into central Illinois was basically above normal, as well as areas of Tennessee. But then you look at the spots across parts, even of California. As much snow as they got in December, a lot of that stopped once we got into January. And then even though parts of Colorado got some decent snows, most of the mountains are still running basically below normal. So this is a really good map that shows you not only the precip, but also the lack of snow, especially across the areas that need it. So again, the areas that got into the drought last year are still below normal this year as well. And I always say this, drought's not a one-time deal. It's basically back-to-back seasons of dry weather that'll produce drought. And that's where we're going. So you can see even, and again, I mentioned this last week, you drive north on 94 up into Milwaukee, and a lot of the public grassy areas along the highway, they're brown. You look at our areas and we're green, and you still see that those areas, even though they got some decent snow this last week, you're not going to get a lot of moisture out of snow. That'll either evaporate or kind of melt back into the atmosphere even before it gets a chance to percolate down into the ground. So these areas still somewhat on the dry side, but as I mentioned, the pattern looks favorable for kind of like chipping away at that over the next 2 to 3 weeks. Yeah, so here's the 7-day precip forecast. And, these have actually been working out pretty well. The last one occurred, the last two were basically from Springfield, Missouri, up through St. Louis and up into, our neck of the woods. That's where the 1 to 1.5 was. and that kind of verified nicely over the last 2 weeks. Now we're finally beginning to get snow up across Wisconsin, northeast Iowa, southeast Minnesota. So this is good, but if you remember, I think 2 weeks ago or last week, I showed a 1 year map of rainfall, and they're down 12 to 14 inches. So if this time of the year, you're typically getting about 2.5 to 3.5 inches of rain per month, you basically need 5 to 6 over the next 2 months going into the summer season. So I will predict right now on the first week of April that we'll probably get back maybe 50% of that, but we certainly won't make up 100% of the deficit. The pattern does not want to go in that direction. So you'll get a couple of these cutoff lows that'll produce 4 or 5 days of light to moderate rain, but we need is a flow of southwest moisture coming in from the Pacific Ocean with a little bit of a help from the Gulf of Mexico, but it ain't going to do that. So where it's dry now, it'll get better, and hopefully that'll be the case before we get into the month of June when we start to get just more, convective stuff as opposed to these wide-scale, big storms.
I want to call attention to something you also said, which is good for gardeners here. You're looking at soil temperatures for April 2nd. Now, you can read the map on the left better than you can the one on the right, and it's showing 37.6 just west. That's in DuPage County. And downstate, you're getting into the 40-degree range, 45 degrees plus as you get downstate. But
is this 2-inch, 4-inch soil temp?
It's 4 inches. So there's actually a link that I sent, Mike, and it's from the Illinois State Water Survey, and it's really, really good stuff because these are all co-op observers, part of the University of Illinois Agricultural Extension, and the 37.6 is actually in St. Charles, which is in Kane County.
Oh, Kane County, okay.
Yeah, and the 38.4 is at NIU. So what they do is they'll have these spread out across the state so they can get a really good idea of the depth of the coolness, basically. And we all know that that's really what makes things grow, is how warm the soil is. And what I also posted was a really great article that shows how not so much the depth of the cold, but the length of the cold has an impact on, basically getting rid of those critters, those bugs that we have to deal with from a standpoint of agriculture and farming. And I was talking with Nancy Tuckman, who is our dean over at the School of Environmental Sustainability. And when I sent this to her, she was like, oh my God, this is something I was just talking about in one of my classes. So here she is doing, stuff from a book. And she's like, where do you get this from? And I go, well, I do some searching and I find it. And she goes, this is terrific. Can I use it? I'm like, of course you can. It's public access. So this is something that not only that, but the actual information from the blog that went out really does a good job of explaining, how if you get a late season cold snap, which is what the map on the right shows, which is the last date of the last possible spring freeze, you can still get rid of some of those critters that are kind of like underneath pieces of bark and grassy areas, not pieces of bark, but underneath bark or in grassy areas, or basically 3 or 4 inches down on the ground. So it helps out more so with people who plant trees and bushes that are worried about the pests coming out of the ground that don't get killed because we have a warmer climate. And I think this is really important to see because from 1970 to 2000, we had basically 185 days of a growing season in southern Illinois, about 175 in central Illinois, 160 up in Rockford. But in those 30 years, I shouldn't say 30 years, the next shift from 1991 to 2020, actually that's a shift of 20 years, we've increased the number of days by 20, which is really remarkable. Now, you got to be careful about this because it's not all bad. So what this means is farmers go, wow, you mean I can plant earlier and then harvest later? And the answer to that is yes. But at the same time, this usually means that you have probably a more humid climate, a wetter climate. So it may take away from the fact that you may not be able to get into the fields because of, more mud. And at the same time, you may have a wetter late September into early October. So obviously there's good and bad on both sides. But the thing about it is, present the data and see what farmers think of it and how they adapt to it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you can actually predict whether or not you're going to have extreme wet or extreme dry. And this one probably answers Peg's question a little bit. What this does is it takes that previous map and it breaks it down into percentages. So it says 1 in 10, which means that there's a 10% chance of the last spring freeze occurring April 15th up around McHenry County. Then there's a 1 in 5 or a 50% chance of it being about April 22nd. But there's really a 9 in 10, like a 90% chance of the last freeze occurring around May 13th far north, May 6th across the western suburbs, and generally right around, basically that last week of April, you can still get a freeze around here. But generally speaking, if you look at the median chart, that's the best way of doing it. You can still, now that doesn't mean the 90% means that's how much it happens. It just means that there's a 90% chance that it can still happen, but the median is basically in the middle there. That's the best way of looking at it.
Yeah, and you can always get surprised by the weather, regardless of what the statistics tell you. That's why when you're planting in the spring, you got to keep an eye out for the weather forecast, just to see what's good.
And that's hopefully what we're here for. Is that I don't think we get into any warm weather for the next 2 weeks in any long period of time. So this was yesterday.
No, this is Sunday. Actually, this is today.
Today.
Okay, this is Sunday. So the system that was over us yesterday is now over Pennsylvania, and you can see that one out west kind of moves into our area on Monday, but it'll get here tonight. So we'll actually have rain by 9 or 10 o'clock tonight, and then it'll be probably raining through early tomorrow morning. So again, even though there's some lake fog coming in right now, and there's quite a bit of it actually, this is the map for tomorrow. So tomorrow does not look good. Rain should be ending early morning. Wind off the lake, you can see temperatures only in the mid-40s. Normal high is now 54. So we're 10 degrees lower than that. And for people who live near the lake, probably 3 degrees lower than that. So
Gee,
not
thanks.
good. I know.
I look at these maps that you sent me. Okay, so there's Monday, and then you go into Tuesday. Wait, it's all green. It just seems to be more and more green.
But the heaviest stuff is still way to the south. So there's actually two systems kind of merging. The one to the north will eventually merge with the one to the south. So we'll get rain most likely Tuesday night. But the good news is that this next system coming in from the north is definitely going to favor the areas that need the rain. The areas across southern Illinois don't need it, and unfortunately, they're going to get it. So by Wednesday, this thing literally becomes one large upper low. And when you start to see these things developing on Wednesday, they're with you for 4 days. They don't go anywhere. This is the season of the cutoff lows where the pattern is beginning to reestablish itself. Very wet conditions down across Florida, very wet conditions for us, off and on light rain. The good thing is that the Gulf gets kind of cut off. So we're just going to be in just spinning low clouds and light rain through from Wednesday through Thursday. So when the Cubs open up, the wind is basically coming out of the west. Terrible weather. I mean, really. I mean, if you want to take a picture of the sun today, do it, because you won't see it for the next 5 days. Seriously.
Oh my gosh.
This is like literally low 40s. And then on the back side, another chunk of cold air comes all the way down the back side of the Great Lakes. And we're probably only going to be in the low 40s. This actually shows us with the possibility of maybe some wet snow around here Thursday night into Friday. So you can see this does not go anywhere. And even when we clear out for Saturday, it's going to be cloudy. So the next day where you're going to have sunshine, and the chance of getting above 60 degrees won't be until next Sunday. That's it.
Nice.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's that kind of a pattern. So the blue down to the south is basically due to the fact that it's going to be wet. That's basically what that is. Very wet conditions down there. And then again, the areas that are dry and warm in the desert Southwest stay that way. And then even the 8 to 14 basically shows, even though it's like near normal for us, that's more so beginning like the 11th, 12th, 13th, and 14th. We'll have 2 days where it'll be above normal. And then the beginning of maybe a pattern shift takes place when we start to see cooler temperatures over the Pacific Northwest. Real quickly before we say goodbye here, but today is the anniversary of day 1 of the super outbreak in 1974. So we had April 3rd and April 4th, where you had 147 tornadoes over a 2-day span. If you take that same pattern today, it would probably be 400 tornadoes, because we count these F0s and F1s so much more than we did in the past. And the reason why I bring that up, it was just published that the month of March will go down as the record for the highest number of tornadoes ever in the month of March, but that's really only since 1990. So when Doppler radar, current Doppler radar, was implemented across all of the U.S., it really didn't happen until like right around 89 or 90. Prior to that, we weren't counting all the small tornadoes. So the number of small tornadoes has really, I think, inflated this. I don't really think this is climate change related. You would almost have to look at January and February. I think if you want to do a study on climate change and tornadoes, it's best to do like from mid-November to maybe mid-February. Look at these larger events that you would not have happened during that time of the year and how they produce tornadoes. But if you just start looking at the number of tornadoes, I don't think that really helps out. I don't think that really helps out too much. But the reason why I bring this up is because it was on a big board on NBC News the other day with Al Roker, and I'm looking at this. I'm like going, I didn't catch it all, but I just want to make sure that he puts it in the context. And I think Al's pretty good about that, because he's very good about promoting a changing climate. But if you start to just see that one graphic retweeted, people go, oh, look, we got more tornadoes than ever. But that's only since 1990. You got to be really mindful of the fact that that's not a very long period of time. And a lot of these tornadoes have been small. Nonetheless, we talked about this. We had 3 major events in the month of March: Iowa, Texas, and New Orleans. And all 3 of those, you take those storms, you move them 2 to 3 miles in another direction, and you have 150 people killed. And I only bring this up because typically you only see weather events, lengthened in the news cycle by how much it cost or how many people were killed. Otherwise, if it goes quickly and not a lot of people died, it's out of the news cycle very, very fast. You mentioned Hurricane Katrina or Andrew, people know about it. You mentioned Hurricane Michael, people go, what was Hurricane Michael? But Hurricane Michael was a Cat 5. But the fact that it missed so much of a populated area in Florida, people don't think about it. But Hurricane Michael was badass. It was bad. But yet, again, people don't think about it because it wasn't. I know, Michael likes that. He likes hurricane. We'll have a hurricane peg one day. Don't worry.
He likes just Michael.
no, Hurricane Michael. It's fine. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. I mean, I mentioned Hurricane Michael to my students. They don't know it. I mentioned Katrina. They know it. Because Katrina was all about flooding and poor decisions and poor response and all that other stuff. But Michael was, and Sandy, yeah. And Michael was so much more, to me, related to climate change because that thing ramped up so fast. And that was like the 3rd week of October. Sandy, I mean,
Yeah.
and Sandy was another one that was totally related to climate change. Katrina, it was in August. I mean, those things are supposed to happen. So Katrina, not related to climate change. I don't look at it that way. The other ones, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Well, we should mention that. We just had a comment. It just popped in. I wish Rick DiMaio gave some weather information for Northwest Indiana.
I do.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If you look at those maps, you can see where that is. I mean, we do. Yeah, we do tend to focus on the Chicago area, but I think you
Put it
do.
this way. From now on, I'll start in Michigan and work my way west, as opposed to starting in Missouri and working my way east.
Minnesota.
Start in New York and work your way west. Okay, whatever you need to do there.
Or New Jersey.
Well, I'm going to let you know that Rick's not going to be with us next week.
It's Easter.
No, that's not. Next week is the 10th. You've got off the 10th, and then we're taking off for Easter, so we won't have a show on Easter. And then it's kind of hit and miss over the next couple of months. So
I'll be back east. My nephew is getting married for the second time because the first time during the pandemic, they could only have a little ceremony. So they're doing the actual reception next week, and I feel bad for them. I mean, you had everything planned, and they go, no, we can't do it. So they're already married, but now they're going to actually have the actual ceremony.
The party.
And then my parents was supposed to fly up for it, but my mom has had some health problems, so she can't really be on a plane. So in the month of May, I'm going down there for 2 weeks to help them out. So
we won't be seeing as much of Rick during the month of May, and then summer comes, and you're going to be on your summer break, kind of just once. We'll see you about once a month. So we're making some changes in the schedule. I have to tell you though, your signal was impeccable today. So aces. So we appreciate it. I think Jack's had something to do with it.
Yeah, and I bought an Ethernet cable from Northwest Indiana.
Yeah, great. All right, Rick. Thanks a lot. We'll see you in about 3 weeks here, and
safe travels. Have a good Easter.
Happy Easter and all of that stuff.
One Pasta.
All right. Take care.
Peace, guys.
Can I do a quick product placement?
Yes, do
Super
quick. Oh my God, we were going to talk. We were going to talk about. We'll talk about it next week. So yeah.
Product placement. Okay.
All right. What do people need to know about the
issue of Natural Awakening Chicago is out. We're focusing this month why we need wild places and a lot of stuff for Earth Month. We'll talk more next week about it when Doug's on the show, obviously. And you can go to nhachicago.com to read it all online. Please sign up for the newsletter and get it in your inbox.
Do you have an article about Doug in there for April?
No, actually, the lead article by Cheryl DeVore, Why We Need Wild Places, Ways to Bring Nature Back into Our Lives and Landscapes. Cheryl interviews Doug Tallamy. She interviews Justin Hoffman and several other people.
Wow. Okay. So go online or pick up your copy of Natural Awakenings Chicago and be ready for the quiz, which will be next week. And so let's thank everybody who was on the show. Kelsay and Tristan Shaw, meteorologist Rick DiMaio. Let's remind people we didn't get to the green thing today, the Green Dispatch, but the articles are up there. You can read them and comment on them if you like. Thanks to Kathleen, who's running around helping today and tweeting, and I appreciate that. Thanks to our viewers and everybody being really
Great
engaged.
Comments this week. Thank
there
you.
were fabulous comments today. So until next time, go green or
go home.
What?
Is that it?
Yes, it's over. How'd you like it?
I don't know. I slept through the whole thing.
Well, you didn't miss much.